Sasstastic Life with hosts Trisha Rivas and Wendy Fredrigo.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. We cut Jason off there as he was counting us down.
Yes, I jumped ahead. of the countdown. Sorry about that.
We're rude.
We are super excited to have
Yes.
David Allen Tracy with
Thank
us.
you.
I specified that because, there's other people that have that name.
Yes, and they're not me.
Theologians. Theologians.
Yeah, an old theologian named David Tracy. Sure, he's a great guy, but I'm like, I'm not that guy.
Yes. So how would you differentiate yourself between the theologian? If someone just meets you on the street, how do you describe who you are?
Oh gosh, as a personal brand coach, I should be able to answer that real quickly, but I am an Enneagram 7.
Yes.
And we don't like being put in a box. So I am, as a 7, literally someone who does a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
I am someone who is always looking for the next exciting thing. Let's do this, and I'm creative, artistic, and I see things that other people can't see sometimes. And I'm like, let's do that, and pushing the boundaries. And people who follow me on social media will see I'm always up to something random. And yet, to me, it all makes sense, right? So,
So have you always embraced that about yourself, or have you fought it?
I fought that for probably the first 30 years of my life. So, as many people do. And so, and that's somewhat normal up to a point. When we grow up, you kind of like, who am I? What am I going? What am I? And what's allowed, whether your parents allow it, or your peers allow it, or society allows it as a whole, or you allow yourself to do it. We tend to think like, oh, I can't truly authentically be me, because if I do that, maybe that's weird, or that's not going to be accepted, or whatever. I still push the boundaries. I was the one who, in school even was doing, I was in art. I was the nerd. I was not too sporty, but I did like playing football. And, I tried to do a lot of variety of things. I had like little businesses, on the side that I would.
That doesn't surprise me.
Like, remember when the Beanie Babies were a big thing?
Yeah.
And, Princess Dies, like purple, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, $350. It's going to be worth something someday. And it's not. And I would like collect those and like sell them to like grade schoolers. And
I thought you were going to say cigarettes.
That came later. No, but like literally we would just, I would just constantly be doing things. And so I went to like this little school that was at a church in Panama, and I'd buy pizza with my friends and we eat it in the baptismal. I hope no one's listening who was there.
So you're going to hell.
Yeah.
So tell us about that. You grew up in Panama.
I did. So my parents ran a nonprofit that worked with indigenous peoples. So we moved, I was originally born in Wisconsin, but around age 4, my dad went to Cambridge University campus in Nova Scotia, learned to become a teacher, to teach English as a second language, went to Mexico, lived there for almost a year, then went to Florida for a little bit, and then to Texas, and then to Panama, and then back to Florida, and then Panama. And I lived there for most of my life, from age 7 forward. So I grew up, we didn't live, Panama is one of these places with the Panama Canal and with the military that was stationed there. There's a huge U.S. presence of like 200,000 troops and their families.
Yeah.
But we didn't live in that area. We lived out in the rural areas. And I grew up in a little small town where we were the only white people in the whole town. So I learned Spanish. I already knew a little bit, having lived in. We also lived in Guatemala for a year.
Okay.
But playing soccer with the kids, and there was certain things that I can identify with. Little Panamanian kids who are now adults. What childhood was like back in the early 90s. In Panama, in a rural community, where you'd play with like the tops and marbles, and things that maybe in the US that would have been done like maybe in the 60s, 70s, 50s. Like, what? We would do that because there was nothing else to do, and I was expressing, and then we eventually moved to the jungle, and we worked amongst indigenous tribes, and that was a total different ballgame, right? So we're talking like beautiful people who live deep in the jungle, canopy rainforest, huge like Avatar type, like the movies, just gorgeous, in huts. And, they wear loincloths and, wraparound skirts and are topless but not always. Like as tourists started coming and, then they'd wear normal clothes. Tourists come, they're ripping off their shirts, So
Trisha would love that.
I would. These are my people.
Yeah. Like, here come the tourists. Woo! So no, but it's like, but literally I learned to cook over a wood fire, and my brother and I would like climb trees and go sliding down the muddy slopes into the river and shoot big tarantulas at night with flashlights. We'd have flashlights and shoot the tarantulas with BB guns, and they'd blow up. And
oh my gosh, David.
So it was fun.
What was probably the biggest insect that you ever
Yeah,
witnessed?
I can't imagine the bugs you saw.
Did you drive it? Or did you ride it around?
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of insects in Panama, but truly the tarantulas are the biggest. They are they're about that big, which is, what is that, 7 inches or so?
Yeah.
And circular diameter. So basically, and there are different types. So there's the ground ones, and then there's ones that can come off the trees and helicopter. And,
oh my gosh.
So, it's interesting. There's also over in the rainforest area. So like, I'm going to be doing a plug for Panama, so I don't want to freak anyone out. But like, there are like 150 different types of snakes in Panama, and over 50 of them are poisonous. Now, in my entire life living there, I saw like 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I lived in the rainforest.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
but it is a beautiful country, and it's really a melting pot. There's 7 distinct different indigenous tribes, each with their own language. There's also a large population of Chinese. There's, I think, 14% of the population is from China.
Wow.
There's a huge population of people from the Middle East, from India, Europe, South America. And so it's really a huge melting pot. In 2012, it was the #1 place for tourism in the world.
Wow.
And it was the #1 place for U.S. retirement outside of the U.S.
Really?
Yeah.
We're going to have to go there. We're going to have to do a podcast there.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's cool.
So it sounds to me like, with the energy type that you are, that was a good upbringing for you, because you weren't in a box.
I was just going to ask about that.
I mean,
no.
So that actually is good. It's not like you were stuck living in some tiny town.
No. And I traveled a lot because we did nonprofit work all over the world, and I got to see firsthand extreme poverty, extreme devastation after earthquakes or floods or loss. We did medical brigades to people who had no medical care whatsoever accessible, where if they had, dysentery too long, they could die from it, or a flu, they could die, like that kind of stuff. So where the indigenous peoples the women would fight over our garbage. Like we would have like a container with a lid, that was like an ice cream bucket, not ice cream, but you get my idea. Like just a container, like a margarine or something.
Yeah, exactly.
And we put it in the garbage, and they're like fighting over it because it's a container and they could use it. And so you learn, like, for me, that was normal life. I didn't realize like how different it was. And then I'd come to the US. And for me, even though I am a US citizen, I've never lived in the US long term up until 4 years ago.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, was it a culture shock when you came back?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it could have been more so if I hadn't visited as often.
Okay.
But with the way it was a culture shock for me was that it's kind of like when you travel, and let's say you do going somewhere repeatedly, like let's just say you go to Norway and you go there like once a year for like a month. It's like a tourist destination for you. It's like the fun place where we go and they have they have a Target, and they have whatever it is that you do when you go to the US. Like for us, it was rummage sales as kids. Like my mom would go get all this stuff for like really cheap and whatever it was. But when you live here, it's completely different. And so I did live in Hawaii for a couple of years, but that's very different than the mainland USA. Too.
Yeah.
It's culturally completely different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
what about your beautiful daughters? What was it like for them, especially your oldest? Because were they all born there?
So 3 of them were born in Panama and 1 was born in Hawaii.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for them, it's interesting because children are, like for me, for example, when I lived in Guatemala and Texas and all these different places, you just think that's what it is. It's normal. Children assimilate so well and are so adaptable. It's the grown-ups who have a hard time adapting sometimes, right? So
True.
my daughters really, last year we said, where's your favorite place to have lived so far? And they all said Iowa.
Really?
And I'm like, really? In part, they don't remember a lot of the other things, but the other part of it is like they're just content where they're at.
Yeah.
And there are things here, like we finally have a house we lived in for 4 years straight.
Yeah.
We had moved on average of once a year before, and that was a big deal. And so we have 4 cats now that they adore. And we will never get rid of those cats, even if we travel at this point, because they're like part of the family. And they have, so it's things like that. I think that before I went into like marketing and all this, I was doing international nonprofit work. So when you're doing nonprofit work, you can go, give, which you can do in the business realm too.
Yeah.
But in its nature, it's expected of you to do that. So I was gone a lot in those years, just doing things. And we were hosting like 50 something volunteer groups a year from the US. And I was traveling and I was organizing conferences and events and festivals. And I was on this committee and that committee. And, it was crazy. And eventually my health started to suffer as a result of that.
Yeah.
And I was forced to stop, to slow down. And that came through a cancer diagnosis, actually. So I got diagnosed with liver cancer, and we were living in Hawaii at this point. I was still doing volunteer work at that point, doing international administration for like different types of projects happening globally. And we suddenly just had to uproot and leave. And, I had to have this surgery. I didn't know what was going to happen. And thankfully it ended up being, the doctors could not explain it, but they're like, you had cancer and now you don't. Like, we can't explain it. So miracle situation. And because we were praying and like, okay, God, come on. Like I have 4 daughters and,
Yes.
And
you have shit to get done and a life to live.
Long life ahead of me.
Yes.
So, and so the doctors couldn't explain it.
So you didn't have treatment or anything? Like
no treatment. I had cancer when I was 14 as well, which is another story. But that one I went through chemo and all the things.
Okay.
So that this was not connected to that cancer. It was completely separate. But Mayo Clinic, Minnesota, proven records of you had it and now you don't, and we don't know why.
Oh, David.
Wow.
So with that came like this like new lease on life.
I was just going to ask.
So, you mentioned you got shit to do. Like, okay, God, what is that shit I have to do now? What is that? And so for me, it was, I had always grown up in the nonprofit realm. We had done nonprofit work. It kind of took that for granted that is what I was going to do. But when I had met my wife in 2009, probably 70% or more of the ideas I had were entrepreneurial in their nature with philanthropic foundations. And everything I do is, how can I better society? How can I improve on people's lives? How can we give back? How can we make a difference? How can we invest? But to do that, you need means. And the biggest issue is that nonprofits don't have money, and they always have to spend like 2/3 of their staff trying to fundraise for it. And then it takes forever to get things done. And then by the time they get the money, they have to get volunteers and they have to fund for that. And it's just super slow.
Yeah.
So my model has always been, let's stop that. Like I'm not trying to say that nonprofits should stop existing, but could we not instead create businesses that are ecosystems to create wealth and abundance in our communities and outflow and overflow into other people's lives around the world. And that has to start with me first and my family. We have to prosper. And then from that place, we can do that in other places. And so our goal in the long run as a serial entrepreneur at this point, I own 4 businesses, and I'm part owner of another one. But basically, all of it is to create this symbiotic ecosystem so that I can plant seed money into third world countries and and that would be in the form of businesses in those countries.
Yep.
So so anyway, long story short is like, a lot of it comes down to, for me, the culture shock in the US was not really in its culture and the general. I love the US. I love, we are really an amazing country.
Yep.
And even right now, politically, depending on what side you view things on, whatever, like no matter what, we all can agree the US is still a flipping amazing country to live in.
Yes.
And yet, and we have very well-meaning individuals and business owners. But my challenge has been, with that abundance and with that safety, how much more can we do?
Yes.
You know, because when you do travel, which as people, we would see the groups go and volunteer. When you do go to some of these villages and you do see the people fighting over just a plastic container, you ask yourself questions.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So the culture shock, and I don't mean that in any shape or form of judgment, because there's need here in the US too.
Yes.
And there's need within this community. Like need is need.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma is trauma. I can't say this is less or more.
Yeah.
But we do know that there's, you were talking about the blue zones.
Yeah.
There's also red zones where it's just chaos.
Yes.
So what can we do to change that?
Yeah.
If you think about indigenous cultures, like the women, it seems like from what I've learned, most of the women always work together in community. So women are used to that, but men, I don't think aren't. That's not always encouraged. Or it's not natural for men to just get together like women do.
Collaborate.
Yeah.
Well,
in general.
Yeah. I mean, and this is I'll do a little plug to the podcast that you guys are featuring on with me, because this topic came up.
Yeah.
The one of friendship in general.
Yes.
And it was a foundational on your guys' friendship, the two of you. And I said how rare that is, like nowadays.
Yeah.
Truly. Where you have a friend who can be with you through the ugly crying and the happy moments and all the in-betweens.
Yeah.
And is consistently there. That's rare. Most people would say like to have a friend like that is special.
Yeah.
You'll find it more often than not with women. Men, it's very rare. And that is, I still am trying to figure out exactly why that is. I do know women tend to be more nurturing in nature.
Yeah.
More maternal. And and that can happen that way with friendships as well, where it's just natural to be more embracing. Whereas men tend to be more individualistic and like, I need to conquer this mountain myself. Like, and when I do get my buddies, it's more to like burn steam and to like, just more shoot the breeze and not go there.
Yes. Not to talk about anything that is going to jar any in-depth feelings.
Because life is stressful, and so we want to keep things in a box, right? And so men tend to compartmentalize things a little bit more. Women tend to connect it all more, and that's just the way it is. But like having been in the nonprofit realm, right, and we had all these volunteers coming through and seeing very traumatic situations. Like when I was in Haiti in 2010, just after the earthquake. This is a country that was already devastated by poverty and chaos that only got more chaos as a result of the earthquake. And we were living in this refugee camp. People who had lost their homes and literally had nothing.
Yeah.
For like a month, we're living there and drinking water through a filter system from the ditch, that kind of stuff. Cooking over a wood fire, and people there was a lot of violence happening in adults towards children and between spouses and domestic violence. And so it was very interesting because the girls in those situations would gravitate towards other girls and they'd cry and they'd comfort each other, and the guys would isolate themselves and they wouldn't process it communally, or they would just like, we didn't even have devices because there was no place to put our power, and so there was no signal. So it's like, okay, so you're really confronted with like, when can you have those deep conversations? Well, they began to happen, and it was amazing to have those deep conversations with guys, because so often they don't come up. And I have counseled over many years like lots of guys, and they would open up. And I think what has happened for me with many of my male friendships is that naturally, as someone who I want to pull out who are you?
Yeah.
What's really going on? You know, I can tell the shit has hit the fan. Like, tell me more. When they finally open up and they talk with me, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I just opened up and we're not meeting anymore. And then it's like disappearing mode, right? And I'm not saying that condemningly to any of the guys. I've been there myself and
Yes.
done that.
Yeah.
But when you can get to the point of opening, you know, I learned something this week that was really really interesting. And we talk about the apocalypse, the end of times, you know, or like, you know, and I learned that in Greek means apocalypto. It's almost like remove the curtain, unveil the blind, and unveil it, move it away. And it's the unveiling of the reality, right? The end of this is what is really there, right?
Yeah.
So
Leaving the matrix.
yeah, you're leaving them. You're waking up, right,
Yes.
to the reality.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I was like, that's cool, because I went right away, took it introspective, and I'm like, when you get to the end of times with someone is when they've let that veil down.
Yeah.
That's why marriage is so special, because it's the one person that you can fully, if you have a good marriage, completely unveil, completely in body, mind, spirit, everything unveil. Friendships, it's harder to do that.
Yeah.
But when that happens, we tend to think, I've opened up, now I've been exposed, and there's this vicious cycle of shame, fear, and control. When we feel shame, then we are afraid and we hide and we try to control it by putting up boundaries or coping mechanisms of some form. And so I try to assuage people's fears by saying, what does love look like? It looks like something. We talked about that in that one episode. It looks like something. And that love is going to be continually there, ongoing. It doesn't give up on you, even if you feel like you failed. I'm still here. And so I've done that and been there, not perfectly, but tried to be there for many of my friends. And the hard part sometimes has been, and we talked about this last time too, is that sometimes, although you pour out, and I know you experience this as a coach, and you experience this as well. I mean, just the nature of your industry.
Yes, very much so. Yes, David.
You know,
yes.
like I think every bartender in every hair salon should have some degree in counseling or something, because you just naturally,
exactly.
But it's just this like, okay, like we can go there, but then don't disappear on me.
Yes.
And what about me? What about me in this situation? Because I'm giving and I'm not receiving.
Yes. Yes.
So it's just a rare thing. And it sounds like whiny baby stuff, but like if we actually think about it, and those listening and watching, if you actually think about this, like who do you have in your life that you can 100% say, this is what's going down. This is where I am at. I had this thought the other day. I don't know what to do with that. And I tell you that, and that that person's still in your life. No judgment, walking with you, empowering you.
Yeah.
Do you have someone like that?
Because there's people that don't even have parents that would have that reaction. And that is so sad. That is so sad. So sad to me.
And this is why too, like, so it's an odd thing, because people are like, David, like, you're a marketing guy. Why are you doing drama, theta healing? And I'm like, you don't understand. Like, so many of my clients come in and they need a marketing strategy or business consulting. And I can give them the marketing strategy. I can tell them what to do with their business. But if they are carrying trauma, if it won't do any good.
I 100% witnessed that myself.
Yes, you have.
Yes.
Very much so. Very much so.
Most people need coaching and then marketing, or marketing and then coaching, because you can have them take the most amazing photos. You can give them the most beautiful website, but if they don't believe in themselves, it won't matter.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Or they have that imposter syndrome. Like, I look great in the pictures and my website looks great, but I'm not doing well. So then they have this like imposter syndrome struggle. So they go hand in hand.
They do.
They do.
Well, and Wendy and I have talked about this in great length too. There are things that I know about my clients that their families don't even know, or I know first.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that in itself can be very draining of your energy, to know that you are keeping this secret. But then sad knowing that they couldn't even express this to those that are supposed to love them unconditionally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, and again, as an Enneagram 7, I'm a 2 with a 7. I mean, sometimes we're all up in our shit, honey, and our feelings. And it's just like,
yeah. Well, people know when I'm mad, I'm mad. And when I'm happy,
Yes.
I'm happy. And when
Yes.
I'm sad. It's like, you know,
there's no confusion.
you will never wonder with me. There's no passive aggression. It is just pure aggression. So
Okay, we need that on a shirt.
exactly.
You need to take care of that, David.
Yeah.
You'll have it done by tonight.
I'm not passive aggressive. I'm aggressive.
I'm just aggressive.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So you have a retreat coming up in Panama, correct?
I do.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So this has been something that I wanted to do for a long time. And having organized conferences and events previously, one of the biggest beefs I have with conferences is that there's way too much on the schedule and not enough downtime to actually connect with people and have fun.
Yes.
And if you look at most events, what's your favorite thing you got to do? Like actually it's over the meal times or it's like the outing you did. And usually we'll remember like 1 or 2 of the keynotes and we're like, yep. And then the other ones were like on our phone, you know, like, so I have it's a personal branding retreat. It's called, I can't remember what it's called right now. See, it's in the description box.
Yes.
Maybe you're supposed to rename it.
I'm going to pull up my phone right now, if I can find it under the chair here. And
we can edit all this out.
Yeah.
And
just come right off the tip of your tongue.
Or you can just leave it in and be like, yep, this is David Tracy. He is an Enneagram 7.
The theologian.
The theologian. Yeah. So, okay. So it is going to be in Panama, February 28th through March 5th. And the name of it, if it would pull up, because there seems to be no signal here. We're in a dead zone.
Well, we're on the outskirts of Minneapolis.
Yeah, we're in South Minneapolis.
Okay, it's called Ignite Your Influence.
Ignite Your Influence.
Obviously, very memorable name.
Stop.
So, but it is going to be, it's a personal branding retreat, and it's going to be with myself as a personal brand coach. And Chelsea Engel, she's a certified Enneagram coach. So we're talking personality. And she's amazing. Plug for her right now is that should be a guest at some point if you ever, she's phenomenal.
Is she from Des Moines?
She is.
Yes, I've heard of her before.
Yeah.
I'm almost positive we've met.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, she's really good because I've been going through personality, Enneagram stuff with her, and it's like therapy. Because it goes into like, why do I do the things I do and why don't I do them? And it's like, oh, that's because of that memory, you know? And so it's really good. And then we also have Mary Kate Gales, and she's a makeup and stylist for Hollywood stars. She's done like Susan Sarandon and like crazy Hollywood stars. So, so we're going to be talking about your personal brand, your essence, authentically you, your personality, how do you dress, your colors, how to style yourself to be authentic. Like, I love the way you both are dressed today. Like, it's so you guys, and yet it's so memorable, right? The way you both dressed today. I'm like, I remembered right away. I will never forget that t-shirt and those glasses. I will never forget that the necklace you're wearing and your tattoos, which I love. And so there's things like that stick in our mind, and we remember them. And then we're going to talk about digital marketing and social media and AI. But that's only a day and a half. The retreat's actually 6 nights, I want to say. So, and we're going to go to the Pearl Islands on a private yacht, to go swimming and go to the islands. We're going to the highest rooftop bar in Latin America, in the former Trump Tower. We're going to the ranked 50 best restaurant in Panama. We're going to the fish market and having ceviche right on the piers. We're doing... we have going to the indigenous village I talked about earlier in this episode, going to that village and experience that firsthand. We're having a personal shopping day where we're actually shopping for each of the people at some of the nicest shopping centers in Panama, where you can buy really cheap clothes. And so you'll come, and there's also photography happening throughout. So you have all your photos taken And so it really is like, here's the workshop, but then the rest of it's like, let's process that and just enjoying each other.
I love that.
So, and to me, that's much more of an effective event.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in Panama, we want people to experience Panama, not be stuck in a hotel.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So, and the hotel we're at is really beautiful. It's the Westin Playa Bonita, and it's right on the beach. So it's going to be a phenomenal trip. And the cost is really it's all included. So all the food, all the transportation, all the outings, the workshop and everything for $4,500 if you want to share a room with a friend, or $5,000 if you want your own room.
Oh my gosh.
Doesn't include tickets, but everything else is covered. And so what is, it's like 7 days in Panama at that price. And we also have it where it can be a write-off. So essentially business because it's a day and a half of workshop.
Yes, exactly.
We just happen to stay on for, so.
How do people get in contact with you to learn more about the retreat?
If you go to my Instagram, David Allen Tracy, no E, then you'll find a lot of my reels and stuff on there. The actual event is jlwtravelgroup.com. So JLW, Joy, Laughter, Wanderlust, Travel Group, or Jerry Lynn Webb. She's the founder of the travel agency that I partnered with that I am now co-owner of as well.
Okay.
So I'll give you all those links so you can get those.
We'll have those in the notes.
Yep. Please do.
But this will be a really, really cool, and we're going to be repeating this yearly and maybe different destinations. So
I love that.
But yeah, sign up. It's going to be great.
Very cool.
Yes, that is so cool. And again, I love how you're investing in things that ignite your fire, that are in your zone of genius. And you had said something, I don't know if the impact that you had said it as was about taking care of your family first. And a lot of times we're afraid to talk about that, especially as business owners. Like if we have employees or whatnot, we have to talk about them first. We're not supposed to talk about taking care of ourselves first, and then our family, and then our employees. But it is how it should be, because if you are working from an empty cup, there is nothing left to give. There is nothing left to give. So I don't know if you even had meant, or if it's just so ingrained in you to take care of your family first.
No.
You said that. I mean, you really, though, when you said that, it was just like this light bulb for me.
I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
And
so share that, please.
So there was what it hit home. And when my second oldest daughter, Emma, my wife and I she was showing me some photos of of early years of her life, like when she was like 1 or 2, and I had no memories. No memories. Like I literally just lost these precious moments.
Yep.
And of course they're never lost forever. I quickly switched gears, but when I realized how we can like literally expend our lives to give, but the precious ones that God has given us that we don't invest in them, then what's the point? And I was like, what's the point? These are the ones that we've been given, right? And so I looked at she was my second oldest, and then my third, and then we had a 4, and I'm like, I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
I am too weak. My addiction is, we all have coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
My addiction came in the form of being a workaholic.
Yeah.
So because I grew up in the nonprofit world, don't get me wrong, nonprofit work is needed, but you give, and you think that's the only value you have is to give. Yeah. And so it became a coping mechanism. And I've opened up about this in my podcast. I had gone through several very severe traumas as a child, sexual molestation, abuse, a lot of things. Okay. I don't know, like here we are, we said it. So and I never went and healed it. I never got healing. I never opened up about it. And the way I stifled it down was keeping busy. And it took me going through so many different types of healing I went through in different seasons of my life, but it really came to like a head last year when I started to my body started falling apart again because I was actually repeating the same patterns again. I thought I had stopped doing that, but what happened was my business became the nonprofit because I was helping like a third of my clients for free because I felt bad, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like doing all these things. And this coach came into my life and she was like, why? Why are you doing all these things? Why? And I'm like, because I'm trying to help people. No, why? And I realized that I was doing it for me, not for them.
Yeah.
I was doing it because I didn't value myself well enough. I didn't trust myself well enough to say no. If I have spare time and I have to think with my own thoughts about my own life, then what does that mean? And I thought, man, I thought I already healed all these things and I hadn't. And so we began to she started to like work like, and I said, can you please help me? And so she did, and she used a technique called theta healing. And I became certified in that eventually myself, because our conscious mind wants to take the steering wheel and say, we're not going to go there. We're going to go over here. Avoidance, avoidance, avoidance. Sweep that under the rug. Don't go there, because if you go there, you'll lose everything. And when I finally went there and took out the dust bunnies from under the rug, what was there was both scary and beautiful at the same time. Our trauma can be transformed and it can turn to strength. And so now I'm very busy still. I'm a very busy person. But it's different now. I'm not working because I have to as a life source.
Yeah.
I'm working because I want to. And they are my hobbies. The things that I'm choosing to do are the things I enjoy doing. I'm saying no to like 100 things a week because I get asked to do a lot of things. I'm like, nope, nope, nope. And the things I am doing are things that I genuinely get life from. And my kids can still be involved. We can go away on weekends like we're doing this weekend. Like, and we can, so it's different. But this is where I was like, okay, like, how can we as society function if we are in constant state of chaos and trauma, and everybody's gone through trauma in some shape or form? We just don't acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And what happens with trauma long term is that it's there. It's not going to go anywhere. It will manifest in sickness, body, or in society, it manifests in outrisings or uproars or things. And I talk often about BLM. The reason it was such a big deal when George Floyd was murdered was that it was a wound that was festering for generations that needed healing. Whether you agree with whatever perspective it is, it was an outcry. The nation cried out because it needed healing. And so how do you heal trauma in society? How do you heal trauma individually? It is individuals taking personal responsibility for their lives, acknowledging that they have trauma, healing themselves, and as an outpouring of that, it will affect others and society can be healed. And so that's why I decided, I'm like, we're going to go there. Yeah. I'm a personal brand coach, but one of my things in my little offering services is we're going to go there. Yeah. You don't have to, but that is a service that is offered to you. If you want to go there, we'll start there first. And usually my clients will start with 3 to 4 sessions of that first. Yeah. And then we do their branding.
I love that. I have to ask, what Enneagram is your wife?
9.
A 9. Okay. So you guys do have a good balance.
Yeah.
Do you find that she's the one that pulls you back in sometimes?
Far from the opposite. Actually, she is truly the person I was supposed to marry. Yeah. She has released me to my own demise sometimes, but literally released me over and over and over and over again. Repeatedly said, I believe in you, I support you, I trust you, go for it. Yeah. And I have been able to have one of the most adventurous lives as a result. She loves adventure and change and all that stuff too. The thing that she does like is when we've had the consistency of a family life in the midst of it. And that's what's changed the last 4 years for us, is that we have had a family. We used to host people in our home all the time, and people would travel and come stay with us, and we would do, and we got rid of our guest room. We don't have a guest room anymore. It is an office. Yeah. And we don't really host people anymore. I used to have people over for dinner all the time, at our home, which I love cooking. I'm a certified chef. Like, it's something I enjoy, but it got to the point where I'm like, anything that's going to, if I am busy, anything that disrupts my time with my children and my wife has got to go. So we literally haven't had anyone to our home in probably 2 years to have dinner. And we'll eat out instead.
Yes.
But it's just like,
Yeah.
nope, we're not going to do that. Like, we did that for a lifetime. We're done for a
Yes.
season. And it might surface again in the future, but it's having the boundaries where they count. Something I learned last year from the same person who coached me was this whole concept of boundaries. We look at boundaries as being like a wall, a box, right?
Mhm.
And when we do that, well, that's my boundary. I got boundaries, and it's like overcompensating because you're like, I really want to do this. And we're going to say yes. I'm not going to say it. It's like the wall goes up, right?
Yeah.
But then we put ourselves in a box as a result. We lose out on opportunities because we put the box instead of just having it be, this is my reality that I live in, and that's the reality that you live in, and I don't need to be in that reality. It's completely different. It's like the looser mindset of it. And it's like, it's a boundary, but it's not like I have to intentionally be like, oh no, a wall, a wall, a wall, a wall. Instead, it's like, I'm just on a different wavelength. Like, this is and you can join that wavelength or you cannot, but I'm going to keep going my route.
Yeah.
And it's very freeing. So I learned that because I was like, I don't like boundaries as a 7.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to put them in. But when I understood, like, oh, this serves me and this doesn't, and this is where I'm at, and you're welcome to join that, but I'm not going to do that. It didn't feel ugly or nasty.
Yeah.
It's more of a flow. Like, that's just not.
It is. Or it's just, it's a no right now. The boundary thing seems so permanent.
Yes,
True.
it does.
Doesn't it? It just seems so permanent. And again, it's just, it's just a no right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do we overcomplicate things?
I don't know.
Huh?
It's part of our, it is part of our drama that we do it though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drama and DNA, they go hand in hand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. And
I know, I feel like we could just talk for hours.
I know.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate you both. And I think that what you guys do through your podcast and the event you just had last night, which I don't know when this is releasing, but the date that was, was so many people need it.
Yeah.
And, people need to hear these conversations and be willing to go there. Your bravery to go out and say that, me to say I was abused as a child.
Yes.
To say that is like, oh, he said that. Okay, now I have permission to say that to someone as well.
I hope so.
Yes, exactly.
For sure.
Exactly. And David, you do such a good job of that. You really do. I mean, you're very approachable. You're always very warm, very comforting. You really are. And I truly mean that. So thank you so much for coming on. We always love getting to spend time with you.
Oh, likewise.
And you have an amazing weekend. I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
It's going to be beautiful up there.
It's going to be, going to the Dells, going to go to the Kalahari Resort.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. You can go back to your old work days.
Yeah. I might see if there's some, like last time I checked the place out, some of the people were still working there. I'm like, wow.
Oh my gosh.
So
that's fantastic.
Awesome.
Well, again, thank you so much for being on.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye. All right.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Your Sasstastic Life is produced by Apex VO. Go to apexvo.com. That's APEXXVO.